Welcome to the Fight for Our Citizen podcast. I am your host, Matone, Uncle Fox, and tonight I'm here with a brother of mine, Rudy Brown from Upper Lake. Rudy, how you doing?
I'm all right. How you doing?
All right, man. So tonight I was going to talk about, on May 15, 1850, we had the Bloody Island Massacre. So I wanted to just talk about that before, the day ends, since today is May 15. Tonight's May 15th. And so, it's just something that we need to, acknowledge and remember. And that was more of your people up in Upper Lake, right? In Robinson.
Yes. Well, Robinson originally came from Upper Lake before the BIA split us all apart, and they separated all that. So they originally come from our area in the Upper Lake area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've been having memorials. I guess this is the 25th anniversary.
Oh, okay.
For Lucy Moore, and they've been doing it every year. So, like I said, we'd go down there and we helped them. They invited us to come down there, and we'd take our dancing boys and our dancing girls down there, and we helped them do their memorial. We dance usually through the night, and then at 5 o'clock in the morning, we just march on down to where they have the memorial,
mm-hmm.
which used to be an island at one time.
Yeah.
Because all Upper Lake was a flood area all the way up, all the way through the town and all that. I mean, if you look at all the old pictures, Upper Lake was like 2 or 3 feet in the air because it was a flood area.
Yeah.
And, so they called that island, well, for a long time, they didn't really name it, but now they call it Bonopoti.
Bonopoti. Okay.
Yeah, Bonopoti. And, we march down there like 5 in the morning, do a prayer, and then they speak, and they talk about Lucy Moore and how she survived
mm-hmm.
through that massacre from Stone and Kelsey and all them out of retaliation, and how they asked the cavalry to come over and retaliate. But during the meantime, they had gathered a posse, and they were going around killing all the natives in that area.
Yeah.
And from what I was told, they weren't just killing natives. They killed anybody that was dark-skinned. That included Mexicans and
mm-hmm.
Asians and whoever, because in Middletown, they had some Asians. I believe they were Chinese.
That's where the Yi came from, right? In Middletown, that's where the last name Yi came from.
Yes, where because they integrated with the Chinese.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of Asian last names.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they used to march them down to the sulfur mines down where you guys are from,
mm-hmm.
and they would mine that. And the people in that town didn't want them down there, so they had to march back to Middletown every night.
Dang, and that's far from from Elam to Middletown. Yeah.
Yeah, because the people in the town didn't want them there.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the subject, it's an all day thing when we go down there and we celebrate Lucy Moore in memorial of
mm-hmm.
what took place, because a lot of things happened.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to talk about. So I'll just get a little background about it. So it does say, when I read about it, the Pomos, the Pomo was from Big Valley area, and they were enslaved by Andrew Kelsey and Charles Stone. So Kelsey and Stone purchased cattle running free in Big Valley from Salvador Vallejo. And Salvador Vallejo, well, that was in 1847. And Salvador Vallejo was horrible too, back then.
Yes.
He slaughtered one of my villages, Comdot, and burned the roundhouse on 1849, maybe, I think it was, or 1843. So they had all that area, and then they sold it to, Andrew Kelsey and Charles Stone. And so they built a whole ranch there in Kelsey, well, what they call Kelseyville today. And, the native Pomos weren't allowed to, have weapons or fish. Families starved on rations. They provided only 4 cups of wheat a day for a family. When one young man asked for more wheat for his sick mother, Stone reportedly killed him. So in the fall of 1849, Kelsey forced 50 Pomo men to work as laborers on the second gold-seeking expedition. And Kelsey became ill with malaria, sold the rations to other miners, and only 2 Pomo men survived. And then Stone and Kelsey regularly forced Pomo parents to bring their daughters to them to be sexually abused. If they refused, they were whipped mercilessly. A number of them died from the abuse. Both men endured an abuse. Both men abused the Pomo women. And so, yes, that's where all that's coming from. And so finally, when I read about it, it says, the two Pomo men, they finally had an uprising and, came and they couldn't take it anymore. And the Pomos attacked the house at dawn and killing Kelsey with an arrow. And then they killed Stone with a rock and then they left. So like when I read about it, some Pomos went to certain areas. Some Pomos went to Upper Lake, Robinson, where Bloody Island's at. So in actuality, they really didn't go after they just, like you were saying, they went after everybody who was dark skinned. So yes. So May 15, 1850, the regiment of the United States with the posse, they got together. The Dragoons, they came in and they just stumbled upon Bloody Island.
Yes, which was all women and children.
Yeah, it was all women and children.
The men were hunting.
Yes. Yeah. So the soldiers in Davidson arrived with orders to proceed against Clear Lake Indians and exterminate, if possible, the tribe. I mean, that's in quotations. I mean, so they got a order to just exterminate all Clear Lake Indians if they can.
Yes. And that's one of the only government-sanctioned slaughters that was allowed. Mm-hmm. They're like, yes, go ahead and wipe all of them out because of what took place. Mm-hmm. Because he had connections, like he was like a politician or something, and he had connections. So when they found out what happened, they're like, yeah, wipe them all out, get rid of all of them. And like I said, they stumbled across nothing but women and children because the men were on a hunting party. Mm-hmm. And one of the people that did get them was a young man named, I believe his name was Shook.
Yeah,
Shook. He was the one that they claimed had killed Kelsey.
And where was Shook from, you think? Because they say it was one of Chief Augustine's, like...
Well, Chief Augustine was from the Upper Lake area, the old Robinson area.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was from over there.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to have been from that area, but there was a lot of people from the Big Valley area. Like I said, they were treated horrible. They were sex slaves. They were starved. They were beaten. They weren't allowed to go hunt. They weren't allowed to fish. And then... pretty much Stone and Kelsey were pretty much child molesters. They were rapists, and they named the town after him. Yeah. And it's like naming a town after Hitler. After the disgusting stuff that he had done and committed in Germany.
Right.
There's no pride or any kind of anything in a town named after somebody who sexually assaulted and murdered kids.
Yeah.
And in children, there's no kind of pride in naming a town after him.
Yeah, and then they also killed in the reports. It says they also just killed 50 more Pomos along Cache Creek. I mean, just because So it went from like May. It started May 15, but it also says it went to May 17. I mean, just whoever they found. Like you were saying, whoever had dark skin, they were killing.
Yeah, and you have to remember, California also sanctioned the scalping of natives in California, where they paid you. And like I said, anybody that had black hair, whether you were Asian, Mexican, or Indian, you got scalped because the government was buying those scalps. Mm-hmm. So at that time, there were people being scalped and everything. So, that was money coming from the state of California.
Yeah. And that's what that's why I always tell everybody here from Arizona, because like the Pomos today, we're getting back our language. But it started so early compared to other tribes, just getting assimilated early, early in the 1800s and being slaves in early 1830s and 40s and, getting taken by Salvador Vallejo to, out towards San Francisco to gold mine. And so we started, Pomos got it early than other tribes.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
It seems like if you look at the history and the dates, it seems like it went from the West Coast to the Midwest because a lot of that stuff happened later on in their time.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had we dealt with the Russians, and then we dealt with, the Spaniards that when they came out, and then the last was the, United States. They were the last.
Yeah, they were the last ones to come in.
Yeah.
And And that's another thing too, is from a couple of books that I had read that Buffalo soldiers were on their way up, and I believe they camped out in the Yosemite area.
Hmm.
And everybody knows the history about when they sent the Buffalo soldiers in. They sent the Africans in first, and then to even out the odds, and
Yeah,
then the U.S. would come in after because they were outnumbered us after we got it with the Buffalo soldiers.
yeah.
A lot of people didn't know that, but Buffalo soldiers, they were Indian killers. They were trained from wherever they came from. Like, I don't know if they all came from Tuskegee or wherever,
Hmm.
but they were trained to come over and be part of that.
Yeah, they were elite kind of for that, for the Native Americans that the
Yes.
United States had trained.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, and that's one thing I didn't like about Bob Marley is how he glorified that, and
Yeah,
people are just listening to that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Buffalo Soldiers." Like, man, those guys were Indian killers, man.
yeah, yeah,
And
right.
it is. There's a lot of things that bug me. A lot of I don't mean to get off a subject, but a lot of
Oh,
people
no,
talk about
that's okay.
the 49ers, the 49ers, and they're like, man, those guys, 49ers were Indian killers, man. How you gonna be an Indian? How you gonna be a 49er fan when all they did was come through and wiped all our people looking for gold?
Yeah, and I think
You know?
with Pomos, it was mainly just gold. Well, we're in California, Northern
Yeah,
California, so everything
yeah,
was gold. And then for Elam, it was the Sufferbank mine. And so
yeah,
like it's just a lot of. That's why when we do like you hear me talk about Oak Flat, when we do all that, it's just like the mining is really in our history, it killed a lot of Native Americans. A lot of Pomos.
yeah.
Mining and toxic chemicals and towings and all that.
Yeah. See, what the government did was they thought they were doing something by putting us in isolated areas so we would decimate. They're like, oh, let's put them out in the middle of nowhere so they would slowly die off because there's no more game. They killed all the animals and they did all that. They tried to put us the furthest place away. And then later on, they realized, oh shit, they got oil over there, or they
Yeah,
got gold, or
yeah.
they have something. So now they're trying to kill us for all that stuff.
Hmm.
Whether it be something wrong with it. I mean, how you guys have the mercury and the sulfur down that way,
Yeah.
you know, after, you guys got that area. So that just added to the mixture of what's going on already,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. And, when we go back to the massacre, we talk about Lucy Moore, who was 6 years old, and
Yeah,
to being in that lake, and me and you've been in that lake, and to breeze through that tule reed, it's like a little skinny bamboo kind
yeah, like
of
a
reed.
straw.
Yeah, I mean, for her to survive like that, and I always say, like, man, if she didn't survive, that would wipe out almost all of Robinson today. I mean,
Yeah,
because they're
because
all
they're a
related.
big family.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
big family. I mean, so for her to survive that, it saved so many people, families today. I mean, they're all. I mean, she has a big family.
but what they don't tell you is that there were other survivors too, the women and children that ran to the hills and made off.
Hmm.
I think she's just more famous because she hid in the water and used the tule reed to breathe under the water.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know if the other people were recognized or they didn't know who they were when they took off running because they never came back. They ran scared for the hills,
Yeah, right. And then a lot of them didn't have. She's just more identifiable because later on, she had an English name. But I always say
Yeah,
back then, all the Pomos they didn't have English names, so probably couldn't really identify them at the time.
yeah,
And so Lucy probably had more of a story to it, and so
yeah,
she started talking about it, so that's how she got identified right away. But yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of other Pomos that survived, or kids, but again, they didn't have English names at the time, probably.
yeah. I know they started a program too in the schools. They're starting to the tribes got together and they wanted to try to teach the kids the real history of what happened
Hmm.
versus the untruthful history that they teach in the schools,
Yeah.
and they try to teach them and tell them about Bloody Island and what took place and
Hmm.
all the ancestors and all that stuff. I know we had talked about it a while back. I believe last year we had a meeting about that with Fawn and uh, with Fawn Rave and Joy Marks.
Hmm.
And I don't remember who else was there, but we had talked about that. They wanted to do a curriculum about the Pomo in this area in the schools, and they wanted to teach the kids the correct history versus what they were teaching in schools, and they
Yeah.
wanted to learn the language and all that stuff,
Hmm.
you know. But
Yeah.
it
That's.
is a big thing, people are remembering, they have a lot of people that come up and they pray and they sing and they tell their stories and all that stuff.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people don't like to get up early because they get up and they march down there at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Hmm.
and then around, I don't know, 7, 8, or 6, somewhere around, I think 7, they start talking and they sing songs and do prayers and all that stuff, and they give everybody the opportunity to stand up there and talk.
Hmm.
And they do a prayer for Lucy and the family and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and then they try to talk about people getting the truth out there, the real story about what happened. And I
Hmm.
know there's a memorial up there too on Reclamation. Before you go down there, they have a memorial of what took place there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a big old rock.
It's just something that I know because I went to school in Lake County, and it's something I didn't know in history or anywhere until later. My dad told me about it, and I was by
Yeah,
that time I was like 16, 15 when I found out. But again, it wasn't in the books. A lot of California Indian wars happened. That I think is a lot more than a lot of other states. There was, I mean, when I look at the
yeah, 'cause there's
list,
so many tribes.
there's like the Modoc War, there's the Round Valley War, there's the Tule River War they have on here. I mean, I could click on all these and just read them. The Klamath and Salmon River War. Uh,
Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
so
just
many
so
because
many
there's
in
so
this
many
area.
tribes in the state of California.
Yeah.
I believe I read in one book one time they said that California had the largest Indian population out of the United States. And they
Hmm.
said, I think they said like there was over 100,000 natives in the state because it's just like the tribes that are already here,
Hmm.
and then and that was just the ones that were recognized, and there's a whole bunch more that were not federally recognized, but they said it was like a big old mixing pot because everybody comes to California.
Yeah.
You got Cherokees, you got Apaches, you got all kind of other people coming to California from other states.
Yeah.
And you know how the government keeps track of us like cattle. Everybody's got a number, so when they
Yeah.
do stuff and you put your paperwork in, they know exactly where you're at and who you are and how many kids you got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're the only race that's treated like cattle, where we all have numbers to be identified by,
Hmm.
all our kids and all that. No other race has that but us.
Yeah. And that's what, like when people talk about, the United States and the military, we always go back to, like the Dragoons of the United States Calvary that, had orders to exterminate, California, Clear Lake Indians, if possible, the whole tribe. And
Yeah,
so, it's hard for us today, like I was talking to one of my friends today about, how people look at us if we don't stand for the national anthem, and these are the reasons why we don't stand for a national anthem.
yes,
I respect all natives that go into the military, but all the ones like the national anthem and things like that, I won't stand up for.
yeah,
I mean, because the history of what happened to us, with especially the Dragoons in the United States, and of course on my mom's side, Apache, the cavalry come in with the American flag. That was just oppression.
once people saw that American flag, they knew something bad was coming. Like,
Yeah,
oh man,
right.
that something bad was going to happen when they saw that flag, especially in California.
Hmm. And that's
Uh,
and that's what I was saying. I do get some. I still have friends in Lake County, and they talk about how about Cussaville and the name, and it just when you go back and read, on here, Kelsey forced the Pomo parents to bring their daughters to them to be sexually abused. I mean, when you think of that, and then you name a town after that, it's just weird how people don't want it changed.
Yeah.
The name.
Now it's becoming a race thing because now everybody's
Yeah.
like, oh, they're racist. That why do you want to change the town? Because he was a child molester. He was a baby killer. He
Yeah.
was a rapo. Why would you want to honor something like that? That makes no sense. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's coming to the point to where people are getting racist over it.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're saying bad things about our people, and you guys always. get your guys' way, and you guys are crybags and all this
Hmm.
other stuff. And now they got big old protests, save Kelseyville, and all this other kind of stuff. Like, dude, you're standing up for a child molester,
Yeah.
a rapo, a baby killer,
A slave
and you want
owner,
to keep the name. Yeah, he was a slave owner. He
Mm-hmm.
enslaved women, children,
Mm-hmm.
old people, starved them and beat them, and
Mm-hmm.
now they want to fight for to keep the town name. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and then like who they got it from too. I mean, like I was telling Eagle Batalwin about even Salvador Vallejo. I mean, that's what Vallejo's named after is him. And he was
Yeah,
he was really bad too. He was
yeah,
massacring
and he
Pomos
was
on Anderson Island or
yeah,
Comdot, and he did a lot of
he
stuff
was
too.
he was a general too, the General
Yeah,
Vallejo.
yeah.
Yeah, and he was no better. He was a rapo and child molester, just like the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Enslaved women and children, beat them all, raped them all,
Yeah.
and yet you got towns and cities named after these people. It's like, how can you have any kind of pride or any kind of respect for somebody like that? I mean, you come across a child molester on the street, you're not over there kissing his ass and want to name a town after him.
Yeah.
Why keep a name after a child molester and a baby killer, who raped numerous people,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of people at that.
Yeah.
And he's got people out there bashing baby skulls in with the butts of guns and killing them with bayonets and all that. And you want to name a town after him and keep it like that?
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays people are talking about politically correct. That is far from being politically correct.
Yeah, and if you put in his name on on Google, it'll say all that you just said. It's published
Hmm.
about what they did. I mean, so it's on there. It's not like we're making it up. It's something that's already on record, and
It's a
so
documented fact.
yeah, it's a documented fact, right? So it's not like we're making this up.
Yeah, and people, they're blind by prejudice. They're like, oh, no, he wasn't. You guys always get your way. You guys in your casinos, you guys just buy whatever you want. You guys are lobbyists, and then they cry about it. It has nothing to do with us. It's
Mm-hmm.
having to do with what happened. The bad things that he did. You
Yeah.
know, we're trying to honor our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you're trying to honor a child molester, a raper, a baby killer, somebody who did bad things, who did evil things to people. You
Yeah.
know, and I tell a lot of people, and I'm a tribal leader for my people, and I'm also a teacher because I teach the kids the history, the language. I teach them how to do their regalia and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them, man, I was always told by my elders that before the Europeans and the Spaniards and all them came over here, we were peaceful people. We were taught to hate. We were taught to be mean and all that stuff. But at one time, we were peaceful people.
Yes. Right.
And these
Pomos are
people
very
brought this
peaceful
hate
people.
and yeah, they brought this hate and this anger over here, and now look at our people,
Mm-hmm.
and this doesn't help the situation.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Lake County is that the Pomos, we had Lucerne, we had
Hmm.
Upper Lake, we had Blue Lakes, we had Conocti, we had Rattlesnake Island, we had all the islands,
Yeah,
and then for us to lose all that and just want a name change,
yeah,
what are you complaining about? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, we would love to have all of that back, which is I know will never happen. But I'm just saying, all we're asking is for a name change, and we want a name change. We already lost everything else.
I even had some relatives send me a video of one of the town meetings in Lakeport they had,
Mm-hmm.
where the people, they referred to us as them people. Oh, those people always want this, or those people want that. And I was like, yeah. I was like, how does somebody like that get away with referring us to that? All those people, and instead of saying the Pomos or the natives of the area or whatever, we have to be those people.
Mm-hmm.
And they get away with stuff like that. Those are the kind of people who want to honor Kelsey and do all that other kind of stuff because they don't have no kind of respect, because they're biased, or
Yeah.
whatever they have going on.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of
To me, that
them,
makes no sense.
a lot of the if you look at I've looked at a lot of the census, and a lot of the non-natives there are well, I'm sure everything's like that, but they're all foreigners. A lot from England, a lot from Europe that came there, and so a lot of those towns are named after them too. And And so
Yeah.
it was overpopulated. We on the Pomos we had all that lake area, and we don't have it now. I mean, we
Yeah.
like you said.
When the Europeans first came over, I believe I've seen it in a couple different books that when they came through, just like you know how they come through and check things out and
Hmm.
all that. And I believe I've read that at one time there were over 22,000 pomos in this area pre-European arrival.
Yeah.
So now 22,000 in one area, and now you count, and there's like maybe 5,000 of us in the area, maybe
Right.
more. So we went from 22,000 to 5,000, and that just tells you a part of what history has done to our people,
Hmm.
you know, pertaining to all this stuff. You know, when it comes to like the Bloody Island massacre and all this other kind of stuff,
Hmm.
and that's what annoys me when you read history because when they tell their part, it's a massacre. You know, whenever our people win a war, it's a massacre. You
Hmm.
know, but whenever they go to war, it's a battle or whatever. You know, they got to make themselves look good.
Yeah, and when you read about the Dragoons in the United States Calvary that did this, they did get prosecuted, but that was it. They didn't get they didn't get fined, they didn't get thrown in prison. They just kind of got a slap on the wrist, like a slap on the
Yeah,
hand for doing that. Later on, that's what happened to them. But that's all.
yeah. They just pretty much basically got away with it. That's why shook them. They knew they're like, all right, if we do this, you know, this is what's gonna happen. They knew what they were getting into.
Hmm.
You know, like I said, they had to stand up. You know, they had to stand up for the people. You know, stand up
Yeah,
for themselves.
for all those kids that was getting getting sexually abused. I mean, they
Yeah,
had to do
they had.
something. You know,
Yeah, they had to stand up and do something.
it
You
was a
know.
sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just, that happened May 15, 1850. And I always tell everybody, that I talk to about things like this is that it's not that long ago. There's other history, like United States history, they have like 1700s, 1600s, England, they go way back. Ours is not that far back. I mean, what happened to us is not that long ago. So when people say, "Oh, that happened a long time ago," no, no, it didn't. It's
Yeah.
recent.
Yeah.
We
It's
still have family
really.
members that are here today that that have family that was there at the Bloody Island.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, people just they I don't know. It's like they forget about time. Like, oh, that was forever ago. You know, and you
Yeah,
guys need to get past that and get over it.
yeah,
But when something happens to them, like look at the 9/11 incident.
yeah,
There's like, oh, never forget, never forget. But when it comes to our history, they're like, oh, you guys need to get past that. You
yeah.
know, you guys need to forget about that. That was a long time ago. No, it wasn't. The
Hmm.
United States is barely 200 years old.
Yeah,
You know, this just barely took place, you know, not too long ago. But you're telling us we need to forget and get past it. But when something happens to you guys are never forget, you know,
right.
remember and all this other kind of stuff. And that's another thing that annoys me about the Europeans when it comes to their part of the history. When
Mm.
they're the victims or something happens to them, they're like, oh, we'll never forget it. We have to remember this and we have to honor that, you know. But at the same time, all this bad stuff that they're doing, you know, it gives them a bad image, you know.
And they want to forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It just reading this today, and what you guys are doing over there. Keeping a memorial. I think it's great. You guys do a lot of dancing in the morning, right? Or during the day, and then prayers in the
Yeah,
morning on that
during
day.
like Friday night they'll do dancing, and then Saturday, you know, they'll march down there, you know, do the prayer, and they'll let people get up there and speak and talk about what's going on and
Hmm.
all that stuff. And then after that, they'll have breakfast, and then they'll have the dancers dance until everybody's gone, or until late night. I believe last year we stayed there until probably around midnight, 1:30 sometime,
Hmm.
and we stayed there and danced. They had a fire going. There's food there. People that want to show up and come, you can bring tents. A lot of people come down on Friday night and they camp out. And those are the ones that get up early at 5 in the morning and they march down there with the procession.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes we'll sing a song on the way down there. You know, we'll do a prayer, sing some songs, and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
great.
give our offering to the spirits and do all that stuff.
That's something good that that's been started, and it's good that it keeps going today. You know, just so the youth and everyone, and especially Lake County, understands that we're not forgetting about what happened, you know, that
Yeah.
day on May 15th.
Yeah, and we let them know that we're still here, even though we've went through a lot and
Mm-hmm.
we've dealt with a lot. That we're still here doing what the government tried to stop us from doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at one time we couldn't even have what I was told. We couldn't even do big head and have any of our fire dances or any of that kind of stuff because you would be shot down.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and now that we let them know, hey, we're still here. We're still doing our thing. We're still having our ceremonies. We're still having our memorials for our people. We remember all that stuff. And that's what we have to teach the kids. I have a rabbit crew, and I take them over there and I let them know, hey, we're over here to do this dance for this. It's a memorial.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy was family. She's a relative. The people that put this together, they're all Lucy's grandchildren, great grandchildren, doing this memorial. It's not just about her, it's about all the people who were sacrificed for the brothers that stood up for the people,
Mm-hmm.
that had to put away those people that need to be sent home for the bad stuff that they had did to the women and children and the kids and all that stuff. I
Yeah.
let them know this is why we're here. We're here to pray for our ancestors and the atrocities that they had to go through.
Mm-hmm. And that's
I
why
teach them that.
And that's what you always say, like our ancestors, you know, they sacrificed for us to live today. You know, our ancestors did that.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
sacrificed, just as much as, or if not more. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we have to show them that same respect. You pray for them. Give them offerings, burn some tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And do all that because we have to remember them because without them struggling, we wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. And that's what when you were talking about dancing, you guys going to dance this Saturday with your crew. I always talk about like our Bole dance that came later, you know, during the ghost
Yes.
dance. And I
Yes.
always talk about like the songs that we sing, like your relative Bill Graves sings. Like those are like when he says those are old time songs. Those are old time songs. You know, those are way back. You know, and so when we sing them today, and so we sing that today, it just we're still going. You know, it's like we're not stopping. We're still singing the same songs from way back when. And so that dance is I love that dance.
Yeah. And that's what I try to teach our youngsters. And I try to tell them, look, man, Bill Graves was given these songs. They're old songs. They were given to him to carry on, and now he's left those to us, and it's our job to carry on the best we can. And I tell my rabbit crew, and I tell them, look, man, when Creator gave our people these songs, it was to heal, to heal people. We did that to heal our people and all this other stuff, that he gave us these songs for. And I tell them that, Bill Graves even says in some of his recordings, if people want to sing our songs, they need to sing them right,
Mm-hmm.
because it takes all the spirit and all that stuff out of the song. So that he was saying that you need to sing them right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling people, yeah, you have to sing them right. He didn't say you can sing the song for 10 years and change it in 5,
Yeah.
anything after 10 years, you can change it. It had to be sung a certain way because it had all the power and all the medicine in it. That's why you had to sing it right. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
say 10 years from now, go ahead and change it and put a couple other words in there that you want. No, it had to be done a certain way. It had to be sung a certain way because that's what Creator told him. If you guys want to heal, you need to sing it this way and do this and do that. He didn't say change it in 5 years and add whatever you want to it. No, it had to be done a certain way.
Right.
And I try to instill that in their brains. Hey, this was given to us. This is how I was told we had to do it, and that's the way we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and that's how I always tell Rudy, like the songs. There are some new songs out there. Some Shakehead songs.
Oh yeah,
and they sound good and they're really good. But for me, like as my father Thomas had passed away, I like to sing the songs that he sang, and he sings the songs that his dad sing and Bill Graves sings, and all these songs. So like for me to sing new songs, it's kind of like I'm just kind of pushing my dad and like Bill Graves and Jim Brown and all these guys who sing it, like like clearing them. Like I don't want to do that. I want to keep it as Like, Bill Graves said, these are old time songs. These are
Yeah.
old songs that we're still singing today. So it's hard for me to like learn new Shakehead songs that are coming out just because I don't want to lose that connection, with my father
Yeah.
and Jim Brown and Bill Graves and all these old time singers.
Yeah. Because that's the way we were taught, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, I understand songs come to people and all that,
Hmm.
new healing songs and fire songs and all that stuff. Yeah, that's all good, like you said, it sounds good and all that, but half of the people that get these, they don't even know what the song's about or what the words mean.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to tell my rabbit crew, okay, we sing this song because this is what it's talking about,
Right.
and they're like, oh, okay, and that's why I teach them the language, because that's how we have to communicate. I always tell them, hey, when we get old and we pass on, you have to know your language, because I was told that when we get to the other side, our ancestors, our relatives are the one that's going to lead us to where we need to go, and they don't speak English. So it's important that you learn your language so you can communicate with them.
Yes.
They understand that. So, I've been teaching them the language and all that stuff, and they understand that. We took them down there to Bloody Island, showed them the rock, and explain to them what took place.
Hmm.
And I have some of my rabbit crew that go to school, and when they're taught history, some of them stand up and say, "That's not right. That's not true."
Yeah.
And they argue with the teacher, and the teacher gets mad. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a kid. And they're like, "No, my captain said this, and
Yeah.
and that's not correct. You're teaching it wrong, or you're saying something wrong."
Hmm.
They put them in their place when they go to school, and the teacher's teaching the wrong thing about Indians. They
Yeah.
put them in place when they try to talk about our people.
Hmm.
Like, that's not true. They get in trouble for it, but the upside is that they know their history, and they
Hmm.
know it's important that they know it. That way they're not taught something wrong by somebody else.
Right. And
And that's
that's important to always instill them about May 15, 1850, about the Pomos there. It's also
yes,
important to talk about what happened in Ad Elam with the Suffolk mine. Anderson, well, it was called Comda Island, and then Big Valley had their a bunch of wars there. I mean, so it's just something that we all got to remember. All the youth got to remember why we still here is because of our ancestors and all the things that happened to us.
yes. It's a very important part of history. Like I said, I let them know that this is important, that you know this stuff. It's important that you know the language. And it's important that you know the real truth about the United States government and how they were so against our people for no reason,
Hmm.
other than greed, because they wanted gold and they wanted this, and
Yeah.
they wanted slaves and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And like I said, it's very important that they learn that stuff and that they know about it so they can pass it on.
Hmm.
Like I said, I'm a teacher as well. I teach them this stuff. It's always a good feeling when you can have a youngster get up there and pretty much check their teacher on teaching the wrong history.
Hmm.
Like, it's like, hell yeah, that's a good job. You stood up for your people because they were teaching you something that was inaccurate. See, you know your history, you know a little bit of their language, and you can correct these people, because later on down the line, they're still going to be trying to teach these other native kids inaccurate history. So
Hmm.
if you know it, then you can pass it on, and that's how things work. Pass it on, the truth about what happened in our area, what happened to our ancestors, and all that stuff.
Right. And that's the thing that we always got to instill in everybody. I mean, like you were saying earlier, like the soldiers under Davidson's command arrived. I mean, with in quotations, with orders to proceed against Clear Lake Indians and exterminate, if possible, the tribe. I mean, that's the orders that were given that day. I mean, that's something that we all need to remember that went against us. United States.
Yeah. And that was sanctioned by the government.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
pretty much go ahead and kill every Indian you see
Hmm.
out of retaliation for Stone and Kelsey. So the government's like, yeah, they killed two white men. Let's kill all of them.
Hmm.
You know, and that's morally wrong. Everybody knows it's morally wrong, because you don't kill innocent women and children and bash their skulls in with the butts of rifles and
Hmm.
bayonet them to death and watch them die and have the horses step on their skulls and do all this. and
Yeah.
stuff. It's a brutal history, and I don't know if that's why people don't want to hear about it, but
Hmm.
they have to know the truth of what took place. Somebody had to stand up for the people, for the ancestors that were being sexually abused, for the ancestors that didn't survive the enslavement and the beatings and the whippings, because he used to beat them, whip them,
Hmm.
torture them. So they had to eventually stand up for our people, even though something like that had to take place.
Hmm.
We still remember that. We still pray, and, for their sacrifice is what we're having to live for. We have
Right.
to have memorials. Hey, we need to remember this. This is what took place. We're here to dance. For a relative. Something bad happened to them because somebody stood up for our people.
Hmm.
These brothers did what they had to do to stop the sexual abuse.
Hmm.
There was other people that didn't survive. Eventually they had to stand up.
Yeah, and that's also with also when it relates to Salvador Vallejo, we there's not too much about it, but there in some books there is before that Bloody Island massacre was the massacre at Anderson Island by Vallejo, and that's where like part of my family comes from. Tom Mateo, Thomas Leon's dad, our mother came from there. So for them to escape that and get to Elim, I mean, again, that's where we're here today. That we're living today because of them getting away from that massacre.
Yeah.
And your family too, with Bloody Island massacre. So
Yes.
it's just something that really it's a historical California historical landmark, Bloody Island, and we don't you don't see that much about it, but hopefully that when we play this episode that people will understand what happened at Bloody Island in California.
Yeah, and maybe they'll want to get some kind of interest and read about and see what took place.
Hmm.
Get some accurate information versus having to hear somebody else's. I mean, for lack of better words, a whitenized story.
Hmm.
Something that they heard through the European side. Oh, well, that's not what I heard happened.
Hmm.
I have relatives that are related to them. Stuff like that, because I've seen people talk that way too, out of being biased, biased opinions and
Hmm.
all this other kind of stuff, where they just try to downplay us and make our people look bad and all this other kind of stuff.
Hmm.
I've even read some books where they were saying that Pomos were lazy people. They didn't want to work and do all this other kind of stuff. Like, no, it's because we refused to be slaves. That's why we didn't want to work and go out there and do all that. A lot of our people were shot and killed because they refused to be enslaved by these people like Stone and Kelsey and these ones that refused to be shipped off to missions and all this other kind of
Hmm.
stuff. They're like, I'm not doing that. You ain't gonna make me do that. And they were
Yeah.
shot on sight.
Yeah, and
People don't
that's how we
know.
decreased right away, our population.
Yeah, like I said, we at one time we were 22,000 deep, and now there's man, my best guesstimation around 5 to 8,000
Yeah.
left.
All right, Rudy. Well, thanks for calling in and helping me out with the podcast, with the episode and about Bloody Island. That happened on May 15th. That's today. And to end it, we're gonna play one of your. Is he a relative of yours, Bill Graves?
Yes, he's a relative. Yeah, he was also a holy man as well, and
Mm-hmm.
he was what they called one of those sucking doctors because our people were sucking doctors back in the day. They would suck the poison or
Mm-hmm.
whatever out of
Right.
that body part. Yes.
Yeah, and he was one of the original singers that kept the. I mean, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have that much Pomo Shikhead today. And
Yeah,
so.
he traveled all over through the valleys,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere to teach people these songs. It's even documented that he went towards Hopland and showed them how to make the regalia and do the feather dance and
Mm-hmm.
teach them some of the songs. Everywhere we go, we always hear a lot of our songs.
Yeah, and then I also a recording of him at Point Arena singing over there with them.
Yeah,
So he went all over the place teaching these songs.
yeah, he went. They would come pick him up and take him up to Redding and up there in the Shasta area, and they would come up, take him down south. They would take him all over to sing and show people how to do the feather dance.
Mm-hmm.
He would explain all that to them, that it was a healing dance for the people and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then it's really awesome that he had recorded these songs. I mean, we didn't have these recordings, I don't know where we'd be today with the
Yeah,
songs that he
they would,
recorded.
they would be limited songs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people. I've even gave people CDs. Say, check it out, man. Learn these songs. I'll give you this CD. Learn them songs, and when I need help or whatever, just come up and help me sing or do whatever. In return, that's what I want for them CDs. You ain't got to pay me. You ain't got to do none of that.
Yeah.
Just when I need help, come help me.
Just come up there.
Yeah, and I gave them to like 3 or 4 brothers, and all 3 of them honored their word. They come up and they help me when I ask.
Yeah. So this song I'm going to play, that I'm going to play at the end of this episode, what is it called?
That song is sung by Bill Graves out of Upper Lake, and it's called the Geelok song.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole set to that, and it had to be done specific. A lot of people didn't know about the Geelok, but the Geelok was a dance.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a whole set of songs to that. I know a couple of those songs to the Geelok.
Okay.
And
it's one of my favorite songs to listen to when I listen to the recordings. It's one of the songs that I like to hear all the time. So, well, thanks, Rudy. Thanks for calling in, and thank you for talking about Bloody Island. And hopefully everything goes well this weekend at the memorial.
Yes, it's, like I said, it's this weekend. If anybody wants to come out and check it out, like I said, they're going to be dancing all night or Friday, and then have breakfast Saturday morning after they do the memorial, and go back, and they're going to be dancing until when everybody's done dancing on Saturday. So it'll probably be all night thing, maybe to midnight.
And food will be there. Food will be there, right?
Yes, there'll be food and drinks and all that stuff. Like I said, if you want to come out and spend the night, bring your tent Friday night.
Oh, yes.
Camp out, get up early, and march down there with the procession.
All right, man. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Rudy, for everything, man.
All right. Thank you.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right.
All right. Later.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast. If you guys want to keep up with the podcast in general, what you could do is follow the social media account. The Instagram account is going to be Fight for Our Existence. Again, that's Fight number 4 Our Existence. Go ahead and give that a follow. And if you guys have any questions for us, or you guys would like to be on the podcast, in the Instagram there's a link. Go ahead and click that. No matter what kind of platform you guys listen to this podcast on, there's always that plus or that follow button. So go ahead and click that so you guys can get notifications when we upload our next episode. And if you guys are listening on Spotify, what you can do is go ahead and rate the show. And if you guys are only listening on Apple Podcasts, what you can also do is write a review for the show. Thank you all for tuning in to the Fight for Existence podcast, and we will talk to you next time.